All right, now we're going to discuss a few more bills. We got HB442, HB550, SB220, and SB272. We're starting with HB442. This was kind of a twofold bill. This bill addresses a provision in the state of Utah that we've never really had to allow linemen to get licensed as E200, they would be a B100 license that would essentially allow journeyman linemen who have experience of 4 years or more to get licensed as a general engineering contractor, and allows them to install line utility work, electrical utility work. The other portion of this came. This is something that I've been trying to do for a long time, is to up the licensing requirements for HVAC contractors, and I just have felt for years that the criteria to become an HVAC contractor is minimal. It's not. This did not go as far as I wanted to, but it does create a minimum of 2 years of experience in HVAC contracting, as well as it requires a competency test when they go to apply for their license.
Which is a good thing to have now that we have that industry out there. That it's a big system involved in every building, so having that additional guidance is a good thing. Good step. Good step.
Yeah, I think we got some ground to make up, but I think it's moving in the right direction. So
yeah, and then having that ability for the linemen.
Yep.
Being able to do the having that license available to them. I mean, you've got some great professionals who've gone through a lot of schooling and stuff. To have them involved with utility type things where they're already so involved with them, very good professionals, makes sense.
Yeah, the issue before was to be a lineman, to install utility work, you had to have an E200 qualifier. Mm-hmm. And that just didn't make sense, because an E200 is an general electrical contractor license, and they don't really understand much about utility work.
Right,
so
right.
We thought they need to get their own license, and so we did that. HB550, this was a bill that came to me from the Water Conservancy. We were based in Water Conservancy District, and they had some concern with some fees that they were double paying in their mind. And so they asked if we would run a bill that would allow government entities only. This does not apply to third-party inspection agencies. It doesn't apply to anybody other than government entities. That if they employ their own inspectors, then they can hire their own inspectors to do their inspections. And when I first got this bill brought to me, I was a little nervous about it, because I was afraid that it might lead to some conflicts of interest. But when you think about government entities, that they own their infrastructure and their buildings typically till the death of that facility. Unlike when we build a house or we build an office building, oftentimes it transfers ownership, and so I was a lot more comfortable. The intent of the person that wanted this bill ran was not to do anything with vertical construction. Although I think one could argue it could apply to vertical construction, but their concern was more with underground utilities and the welding of that piping that they own, that they maintain. That the people that were coming out to look at them from different jurisdictions didn't have near the training or qualifications that their people that they hired had.
Yeah, they're usually their public works inspectors. If that's who was coming out there, I mean, there's no license or accreditations typically that falls in line for them to make sense for them to be doing the inspections.
But this is basically just for underground. It's not for the structures. More for
it would apply to anything. But that was not the intent. And normally you don't see, like Weber Basin Water District, for instance, they don't hire ICC certified folks. So those type of structures would more than likely still come through the city. It's only their underground utility with this. And it really focuses primarily on what we would classify as third-party inspectors. And those are already hired by the owner, which in this case the owner is the quasi-governmental entity. So,
and they're the professionals. I mean, they know the ins and outs of that system that's going in, so it makes sense for them to be the ones that be able to take advantage of that.
Plus, Representative, there's plenty of water districts that are doing a lot of improvements, aren't there? And so this doesn't handcuff them in any way.
Right.
This gives them the ability to move forward at a pace that they wanted to.
Yep. And I think it frees up time for the city's public works inspectors to focus on other things.
Right.
And I think it could help the cities. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, SB220. Who wants to take SB220?
I'll take this one. SB220 construction modifications. This defines terms, establishes standard for how Division of Water Quality regulates controls for stormwater runoff, imposes a fine for violation, and inspects construction sites impacting stormwater runoff. Establishes exceptions for the Department of Transportation, establishes penalties for noncompliance, and makes technical and conforming changes, and it would go in effect May 7th, 2025.
Yeah, so this is nice that the UDOT agency that is here in the state of Utah doesn't have to deal with a lot of these things and such with those improvements. But the biggest thing that affects building departments, or that will help, I guess, building departments in this sake, is that when permits are applied for traditionally, they've been used as a gateway for a lot of other groups to then utilize or hold up a permit issuance and occupancy and all these things. Frees that burden from those building departments now. That pretty much now a statement that's provided with either the application or the plans that said that they can't disturb any soils until they've received the appropriate permits through whoever that guiding agency is, can be all that's needed now to successfully get a permit for vertical construction. So it's good. It doesn't, I guess, provide that unnecessary burden that a lot of development groups feel is out there.
Perfect. Just as a point of reference too, last year, this is an addition to last year's SWIP modification. So if you are involved with SWIP at all, if you're doing SWIP inspections, I would look into SB220 to look at the changes we made this year, as well as the changes that were done last year. It allows for video inspections to be done. It gives cities the ability to impose fines, as was mentioned, but it does give more flexibility to cities in how they regulate the SWIP. So look at that. And our last one that we're going to talk about in this session is SB272. We're going to turn that over to Doug.
Well, thank you, Representative. Senate Bill, 272 is microeducation entity amendments. This bill removes certain square footage requirements for microeducation facilities and allows the operation of a facility in an A1, A3, M occupancy, in addition to previous authorized B occupancy groups. So, this has a lot of flexibility now, and we should always be mindful to look at definitions, especially when it comes to now entity. Be sure to look at that definition, because there is difference between the entity and the school itself. So my caution out to building officials and inspectors is look at that entity definition so you're factoring this in to the right occupancies. There's one thing that's you need to be caution of. There is certain state language and rules for schools to have certain alarm features and everything like that, where this now entity is going into these type of A1s, A3s, M occupancy uses. They can have that alarm threshold the way it is right now. There's no specific changes to that. So it's something to be very mindful, especially under your planning and zoning folks, to make sure the impacts for as those schools now go into these commercial, if you will, areas or office type of group areas, that there's enough parking and flexibility and things like that. So this is, I think, a good bill for the opportunity for school and entities, if you will. But be mindful of this. This comes into effect May 7th, 2025. Representative, I don't know, you helped sponsor this. Is there anything else to touch on this?
Yeah, I think the only one thing that I'd like to add is, and we're going to fix this next year, is this language is not in Title 15A. And so it's really kind of confusing. We're putting building code in sections of the code where it shouldn't be. And so next year, I think my plan is to pull this into Title 15A. So as we're looking at it from a code inspection review process, that we're not missing these things.
Right.
Because this language would be really hard to find if you didn't know where to look for it.
Exactly.
And so we'll fix that next year. But I did work with the sponsor to remove the square footage requirements that are already in Chapter 10 of the IBC. So it cleaned up a little bit, but it didn't get near as far as we wanted to. But we will next year, and we'll make it much more user-friendly for the code world to be able to access.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Any other thing you guys would like to add on any of the bills?
Great job.
All right.
Thank you.